Does it help? Does it help if I mute my microphone just for the background sound, or is it okay?
Oh, I like the birds. There's a little bit of background bird sounds. It's not a problem. It's very nice, actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So today is August 2nd, and this is our first meeting of the Empathy team. It's really a testing and a prototyping of our intention to have an ongoing online empathic design team here. And we've got 4 participants, and we've started the recording, so we are recording this to YouTube, and that will be for educational purposes and development and so forth. It's good for note taking too. We can always go back, and if we want to look up something that we said or take notes and stuff, I find it really helpful. So I thought we'd just start off with introductions of ourselves. I think everybody knows me, Edwin Rutch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and you know, I've been trying to foster empathy in the world and really trying all kinds of different approaches. Been doing in-person empathy teams here in the Bay Area in Oakland, and now wanting to try this out online. So going into my intentions, I really like that David broke it down into immediate intentions and long-term intentions. So I copied his that idea. So that was really great. So immediate is just to test this out. I had talked with David. We talked a couple days ago, and I told him about this design project, and thought, well, let's just get started and start testing it out. So this is to my immediate intention is just to kind of get the ball rolling and test out this process. And the overall long-term intention is really I want to create more empathy in the world, because I see it as the key to really making a better world. And I think I feel that the human-centered design or empathic design has a lot of potential for building an empathy movement and being a set of tools to create more empathy in the world. So I'm glad everybody's here, and maybe we can just keep going around. And if you'd like to just share a little bit about yourself and your intentions for taking part in this group. Maybe Hugo, would you like to start since you're first?
Okay. Okay. I'm Hugo. I live at present in Argentina. I just moved 1 year ago. I'm on a sabbatical sort of year, just developing a program which is mindfulness-based resilience, which is basically emotional intelligence. That's what I'm working with. So as empathy is one of the key points or the key elements, I'm really interested. And also I have some training in nonviolent communication, where where I have practiced the most empathy in circles and with other people. So I'm just trying to see how it works online, because I've never done any empathic supplied as material has keeping my enthusiasm going. Every time is more. So let's see how it works in our group. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Okay, great.
Okay, cool. How about I go next? So I'm David. I normally based in the San Francisco area. I'm not there right now, but normally I am, and it's my full-time thing that I'm working on right now is exploring how to create a global transformation in culture to move towards a more empathic culture. And so my longer-term intentions that I'm holding right now is to build up an empathy team or empathy movements with the aim of creating this global transformation in towards empathy culture. And today I want to learn about test empathy design in practice and see how useful that is. And also to see what is possible to achieve via an online team. And that's me.
Thanks. Erika, would you like to go?
Yeah, I am Erika. I live in the New York, Greater New York area. I studied psychology. I'm also an artist, and I've been working with people in the areas of art therapeutical workshops. I believe in a phenomenological approach to psychology, and my focus during my studies were on personality psychology and neuroscience. And in that field also it has been shown that there is a lack of empathy leading to a kind of disconnect between people, which it can impact the results of teamwork. So I'm currently working with children from so-called disadvantaged backgrounds in a hospital setting for mental disorders.
Okay, thanks. So let's see, I put up an agenda, so it was just introductions, having our intention, so we finished that. So what I thought we could do is, we've been doing this human-centered design process. I don't know if everybody was able to print out a version of this. And this is what we've been doing in some in-person meetings here in the Bay Area. And we've been going through this, and I thought I created 3 different files, versions of this. And the idea is that, as I wrote, that one of us will be working in, we'll have only time for 3 people. The other thing is you might want to mute if you're not talking. I'm getting a lot of rustling of paper in the background there. So there's yeah, thanks. So the idea, what we've been doing is, using this workbook this is like the basis of human-centered design. And just to review, if you looked at the manuals, that the human-centered design process starts with empathy, in the sense that if we're designing something, our intention is to design an empathy movement, or an occupy empathy I mentioned. So to do that, we need to empathize with people to see what their needs are. And then we go into a define mode. Once we have interviewed people, we take that material and we create mental models or empathy maps. And then we hone in on what a problem area is. And then that's defining the problem. Then we go into ideate, which is to kind of brainstorm ideas. And then we create actual prototypes and then test those prototypes. And then the testing of the prototype is we're going into empathy mode again and using the prototype as an offering, in a sense, to empathize even more deeply with people and what their needs are. And the reason I'm calling it this process is typically called human-centered design. Some people call it empathic design, and I'm calling it transformational empathic design, because the transformational part is that we're designing for empathy. Often the design process gets used to as kind of a transactional empathy, like, oh, I need enough empathy to understand who you are so I can kind of meet your needs for your own self-interest and for my self-interest, and it's more of a transaction versus the transformational, which is designing specifically for empathy. So what I thought we'd do is, unless you want to have different partners, is David and Elka and we would interview each other. using this process. And then we would, two people who aren't being interviewed would be typing up basically what they're hearing, kind of taking notes in the document, and then we'll just go through this manual basically. So just wondering how that works for everyone. How does that sound, or any questions about that? I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but that's. And
yeah. So my question now is, so what's the first thing we're going to do? Who is going to interview who, and who is going to be the scribe?
Okay, so I can interview you, David, since it was kind of you and I who set this up, and then afterwards you will interview Elka, and then Elka will interview me, and then the other two who aren't being interviewed will be scribes, and then you can also, if you're a scribe, you can also take notes about what you think about the process too. So you're kind of like an observer. You can take notes into the, there was a feedback section. Not a feedback, it was the self-empathy. There's, if you, hopefully, I saw that, Hugo, you had printed out the self-empathy. So you can actually take notes into the self-empathy about what do you think about that step too, because we're interviewing and designing for each other, but we're also designing the process. So it's kind of like a two-tiered design process that we're doing, because we're actually designing this whole process as well, and trying to make a process that's reproducible, other people can do, or we can do in future meetings too. So there's a document. Let me try to open this up. And your name, and this is it here. So I just put the link in there. So this one here is Edwin interviews David. And, oh, is there more questions? Yeah, I should go, is there others? And you're on mute, Elka, I see you speaking. You're on mute, Elka.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Did you have a question or comment, Elka?
No, I'm ready to start.
Oh, I'm just waiting for Elka. She's speaking, but she's on mute.
Oh.
Did you want to speak, Elka? You're on mute. Are you seeing the little mute icon above? You should be able to click that and turn on and off your microphone. Yeah, I'm not hearing you. You're still on mute.
Just to try and help you, okay. If you see the images of the people at the bottom right-hand corner, by the image, you should see this sign which has got like a microphone and a line going through it. That's the mute sign, and it's currently showing up for yourself and Hugo, and I've got it off and Edwin's got it off. And that's the symbol that you're looking for. And if you move your mouse and you look at the top of your screen, there should be 6 symbols in the center of the top, and it's the second right from the top. Can you see that?
Somehow her connection is, I think she's frozen. Hugo, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, great. Are
Can
you
you hear me?
yeah, are you in the document? Do you see the document? It's on page 4, and that's where we're going to be taking notes. Well, we can see one situation with the doing it online is
I'm here.
have technical problems. So do you see on page 4, that's where we're going to be taking the notes?
The self-empathy one, you mean?
Not the self-empathy. I put the link in on the side of the chat window.
The last link you posted.
Yeah.
Is it so? Yeah. Okay.
And then it's on page 4 is where the interviews are.
Edwin?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was a problem with the computer.
Oh, okay. I just put in the link to the workbook that we're using, and it's the last link there.
I don't see it.
Let me add it again.
Yeah. So do we follow this protocol? In terms of the work?
Yeah, exactly. This protocol would work. We're also, Hugo, we're getting echo from you. It'd be really good if you would have earbuds in the future, because or take your volume down and or mute too. But if you have the earbuds, then it really kind of solves that problem. So I had a little on page 4, so you can actually, as we do interviews, you can take notes there. It's basically just taking notes. What is you're hearing, and especially, yeah. So, oh yeah, great, thanks. So this is a test for, it'll take a little while to kind of work out the bugs, but what I found is doing these online meetings, it takes the first time or two to kind of work out all the technical bugs, and then starts getting smoother. Okay, is everybody ready then? We can get started. Yeah, I see somebody's there now. Great. Okay, let me get the timer. That's the other thing we need, is a timer. We're going to do the interview. We'll do maybe just for ease. I think we'll do the full 10 minutes interview, and then we'll switch to interviewing me instead of switching back and forth just this first time, because that's, I think, will be a little easier.
Just if you can repeat, just as a small reminder regarding the notes. I will be taking notes.
Yes.
And okay, so give me a hint about those notes.
Okay, what you're doing, I'm going to be interviewing David about
Sure.
empathy and a movement building, and you'll just be basically transcribing what it is that you hear him say, and so will Elka. Both of you will be just transcribing, so what it is that you hear him say, and we can just test it out, see how it goes, and then once that's done, we'll go for about 10 minutes, and then we'll switch, and then David will interview Elka, and then Hugo and I will be the note takers and transcribing. Is that clear? Does that work?
Well, I don't think I will be able to transcribe 100% of what he says at all.
Yeah, it's the best of your ability. There's two people doing it, so you can't keep up. It'll be hard to keep up just by yourself, but with two people doing it, we'll get pretty. I think it'll be okay. We'll see how it goes. This is a bit of a test to see how this works too.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll begin. And if you want, could mute too. Go. Okay. All right. Okay, David. So what our design challenge? We have a design challenge of how might we design an Occupy empathy movement to raise the level of empathy in the world. So I'm just wondering, what do you think about that idea of a movement to build empathy, more empathy in the world?
Yeah. So I think. First of all, that I can't see any plausible way of creating a transformation in culture, empathy, that doesn't go via having a big movement. And I say that because I imagine that the thing that's necessary is that there is a spreading of applying the principles of empathy and the practices of empathy in different contexts. So, like different organizations, in different cultural contexts, and families, and so on. And so, how that's going to look in each place is going to be different. So, there isn't going to be like some formula or thing that you can just create and then just give to people as like the solution. It's going to be something that's created organically in different places. And if it's created organically, then that means you need people in each place to help facilitate that organic growth, which then means you need lots of people working in lots of different places facilitating the organic growth of empathic culture. So the first thing is that I just can't see how we're going to achieve the goal without a large movement. And then as to how we go about doing that, I frankly have no idea.
Okay, I'm taking some notes. I don't know if you're seeing the others, Elka and Hugo, if you're seeing where I'm typing the notes there. So what I was hearing so far, David, is that there's a need for an empathy movement, but that in different areas that will need every context will be different. So we need people in every context to kind of be working within that context to create a movement. And so it's going to take a lot of people because there's going to be a lot of different contexts. And how to set something like that up is you're not really sure of how to do that.
Yeah.
Did I get it, or is there more around that?
What was the last thing you said?
Did I get what you were saying, or or do you have more?
That was complete.
Okay. So what's your experience with kind of empathy movement building? Have you done any groups or anything like that? I was wondering if you have any experience like within those narrow contexts.
Yeah. Um, so what's my experience been? Well, um, one is I've had the experience of being part of movements that lack empathy. Um, and my experience being inside them, like, I guess the felt experience is that they're like this big ship already going in a particular direction, and I can't push the ship to make it change direction. He's already got a momentum and a logic of his own. So I'm thinking specifically of a couple of experiences. One is I joined a school to be a teacher, and I joined specifically because I had this intention of bringing empathy to the school setting. And it seemed initially when I joined that I would have some opportunity to bring practices of MVC and restorative justice to the school. And later I found that I needed more than just a tokenistic agreement from various people in the leadership to these things. I needed a commitment, and the commitment was lacking, and so it wasn't possible for me to achieve my goals. That combined, I guess, with the activism experience of being involved in activism and like at the core being very framing things very much as us versus them, and then when I like proposed an alternate framing that okay, let's like trying to encourage various people, for example, like environmentalists, take the perspective of what it's like to be a CEO of, say, an oil company. Like, what is their viewpoint and so on. It's very, very challenging to do that. And so I guess the learning point here for me is that I can't co-opt an existing movement. I think movements tend to end up with a logic of their own, with like beliefs that tend to be self-reinforcing and motivations that are self-reinforcing. It's very difficult to get existing institutions to then veer in a new direction. And so I very much see the empathy movement as something that needs to be like created from the bottom up, rather than just like tapping into an existing movement and then changing that. Yeah, that's the main thing that comes to mind when you're asking that question.
Okay, so what I was hearing there, just to reflect, is talking about your experience within movements that your experience has been that there's been more of a lack of empathy in the movements that you're involved in, and some of these movements has been kind of like big ships going in a direction. It's hard to shift the direction of those ships. And one of the stories that I was hearing you say is that you were working in a school and you wanted to bring in NBC and RJ, restorative justice processes, and you had difficulty because you felt that the leadership wasn't kind of supporting it, and you saw that you needed more of a commitment from the leadership to support that, as well as within activism. I'm hearing that the activism tends to be an us versus them kind of a framework, and that it's hard to take an existing movement that already has an underlying logic and intentions, maybe an us and them worldview, and then actually change that to be empathic. So you're feeling that an empathy movement needs to be built with empathy from the ground, from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you had any? Well, you're saying, are you wanting to build an empathy movement? I mean, is that something that you have an intention and a desire for?
Okay, so there's like different levels to my intention. So my highest level intention is I want to create universal flourishing where everybody has their needs satisfied, and I want to basically do the best options available to me about how I can go about creating that. Currently, this looks like one piece of this vision is definitely going to be this empathy bit, and currently and to do that you need an empathy movement, and I guess the best way of thinking about what I'm doing right now is exploring how this is possible and how much resources it takes and so on. I can imagine many different possibilities coming out of this exploration. One could be that I'm like, okay, here's a plan, okay, fine, and I just invest all my time on making the empathy movement. I might also conclude something like, in order to create an empathy movement, first of all, we need to get A, B, or C, and they don't currently exist. So then my plan might become, okay, do the empathy movement building in a few years' time, and now shift my focus to getting A, B, C, whatever that is. Like I can imagine maybe that I end up realizing I need like lots of money, and then I'm like, okay, let's get lots of resources and then do the empathy building. I don't know. It depends on how the thing works out.
Okay, so so I was hearing that there's like a top level what's important to you, and that's that basically that all people's needs get satisfied, and that kind of that's the top vision, and underneath that is empathy is needed for that, and if you have for empathy for that, you got to have an empathy movement, and you're kind of looking at the strategies, you know, how do you do it, what are the resources, and how do you put that together. So I get the question I have is, why is getting everybody's needs satisfied important to you?
How do you answer that? Um, I don't think the question has like a further deeper level to it other than like we have like two kinds of goals. We have instrumental goals and we have end goals. And I treat this vision where everyone's needs are satisfied and people are flourishing and people make the fundamental choices about how they live their lives as like an end goal of mine. And so the question like, why do I want that is kind of like, this is just my psychology, this is the goal I have.
Okay, so you're saying that there's no deeper level to it. It's just kind of what is. This is just there's a just that there's a sense of flourishing. I was hearing that that's kind of like an end. Like there's no deeper level besides flourishing. And Okay, so I will ask, why is flourishing important to you?
Um, uh, Again, there's no deeper level, but it's just like the thought experiment, which is just that. Uh, okay, I think of any being that has needs, and I'm like, okay, let's pick a need. Okay, um, somebody who lives across the road. Okay, and do I want their need? Would I prefer to live in a world where their need for security is met? I'm like, yes. Okay, and then do I have the same answer for all their needs? It's like yes. And then is it like, do I have the same answer for all people, all beings that have needs? The answer is like yes. And so it's like, okay, I want flourishing for everybody. Um, I don't know how to go any further than just state that as like a fundamental fact about my psychology.
Do you have an example of a need getting met and what happened there? Is there like a story of, oh, here was this need and it got met? You know what I mean?
Say the question again.
You're saying you're wanting people's needs to be met, and there's like if there's a person across the street, you know, and they have a need for security, and do you want that addressed? Yes, you do. You know, and then do you want animals and their needs met? And yes. And I'm wondering if you have an actual story of a need and it getting met.
So what kind of yeah? So I heard the question. I'm wondering what you mean by a story. Like what? Can you give me a quick example of what that would look
Yeah,
like?
you're saying somebody has a need for security, and you have an awareness that they have a need for security, and then it actually happens that you see, oh, they got security because the neighbors came around and you know, gave them a big hug or created a wall, you know, around their house to create security, or they had an event that gave a sense of security. I guess I was looking for real life tangible stories of a need and then that need getting met, a need that you see.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I think there is one, which is that I think the main thing that originally got me going on this particular path was that I had this very strong experience younger, maybe like when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, where I had the scarcity of connection. Like I wasn't getting as much connection and love and empathy as I would have wanted to receive. And this experience for me was very painful. And I explored uh, various I tried to understand this better, and as I was going about trying to understand this better, I got a better sense that this was something that uh, a lot of people experience. And in fact, this is like the most common. It's more common that people experience some uh, scarcity around connection than to actually have connection. Um, and this uh, coupled with some philosophy that I read, which basically made me think, which basically gave me arguments that there's on a moral level, there's no reason to think of myself as morally different from others, so everyone matters. The combination of the two gave rise to this sense of like, okay, I want everyone to have this thing which really matters to me, which is connection. And also, I'd like them to also get all the other things that they want also.
Okay, then I think we went for about 15 minutes for that, so we can stop at this point.
Okay. Okay.
Then So what we'll do now is switch where you will do the same interview with Elka, and we have a different workbook. I don't protocol. Let me bring that one up. It's in that folder, but I'll put the link in.
Okay.
And here's the page which I will write into. And it's again on page 4. And let me just kind of set this up here. Yeah. Okay, so Elka, you'll need to turn your microphone on. It's off again. And
Should be off. Should be on.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead and
Is the volume okay?
Yes, perfect for me.
Okay.
Okay, and go.
Okay, you've switched. You muted again.
Oh, I am? I did not do that.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay. So hi, Erika. So I'm gonna ask you some questions. So let me ask you. Let's begin with the same question. How might we design and occupy empathy movement to raise the level of empathy in the world?
To start with, I guess that is a very complex endeavor and that is not easily answered because there are so many fractions, so many groups of people, how to get all of those under one roof. That might be the question, logistically. Secondly, who is really interested in empathy, developing empathy, who is aware of it. There is, as you said also, there's a lot of lack of empathy in this world and many people shy away of addressing the topic because they might be afraid, they might not even be aware of it. So I think what we do here now is a good start. And we can see that that in itself is not easy technically. We certainly have the willingness, we have the motivation, we are all empathetic towards each other, but that is not always given. So I guess there lies a problem, how to really get people to get involved, to find the time, to be willing to find the time, and to see this as a necessity in order to improve quality of life or you know, on a everyday level and on a larger scale as well. But I would say, as I said, as we start now and then in every niche we are in our lives, we can build empathy. And I find it amazing how that sometimes works and sometimes frustrating how it doesn't, that people just simply shut off. And there's the question, how to respect that desire as well. There's some empathy implied in that too. The fear of, you know, being willing to engage. So I guess there are a couple of obstacles. In general, I'm positive, but you know, it's an experimental way, I guess, to find the approach or find the entry into that journey.
Do you say everything that you wanted to say?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking if you were just pausing or whether you had finished what you were going to say.
I was pausing and I was just quickly checking experience of empathy. Well, my personal experiences of empathy, they are manifold. I had extremely great experiences being sick and receiving the offer of others. And my problem was to accept that, because I am kind of a strong person, and we also fall back into our comfort zone, being strong. Then we don't want to perhaps, open ourselves up so much. I would consider myself an altruistic person, so I'm always very good helping others. I had one, but that might be come into play later. I have a specific example for lack of empathy that I found really quite remarkable. This is just one. I mean, we all are confronted with many experiences in that regard in our lives, I would say, every day. And sometimes we just have to push those away, or push those feelings away. Let's say if you are in a work environment or you study. So after one term, people might not notice each other, or people might not, the awareness level is a different one. So they do not even exchange greetings. So this is always a highlight, to see somebody who is a so-called business friend, who is able to transport this perhaps level of personal exchange and empathy, to transfer it outside of that realm, where we build a certain in-group. So when we are not longer part of this group, to be able to keep this level of empathy, I think this is quite important. And I'm always happy when when people are able to do that. Yeah. How would I raise the level of empathy in a team? Trying to be aware, trying to address the need of others, because as I said, for me this has always been difficult. It gives me fulfillment to help others. That in itself, as psychology has shown, can make us happier. And of course, I am glad when others show empathy to me as well. Social movement. Well, I mean, a social movement, that's quite a big apparatus. I ask myself what is meant by this. A social movement in terms of how we have lived with others, interact, and so on. And those examples I stated are just, little representations of a movement, if one wish. Well, a social movement is something really theoretical and bigger. But in general, I could refer it to a cultural setting, or I could kind of narrow it down and look at certain populations. And that is the question, what is meant by this? I would say, let's for starters, that are some thoughts.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to note here a procedural thing, which is that what just happened just now is you just answered on your own accord the suggested questions
I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying it's necessarily bad. I'm just noting that my experience of you doing that was I'm not sure exactly what to put the finger on it, but I'm noticing, having had that experience, that I would have preferred it if you just answered just one question, and then I had just checked in my understanding, and then chosen the question that felt alive in me in that point.
I mean, could go back to the questions and you know, kind of in reference to what I said or not said.
Yeah.
Ask me in addition.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you. I wanted to dig more into, particularly, you said your experience of when you received empathy, when you were sick, and that you got a lot of value out of this. Can you tell me a bit more about that and why that was valuable?
Well, I had, as I said, I had never been able to really accept help from others very well, based on experiences and based on my upbringing, basically. I grew up with my grandparents and who were role models for me, who just showed me that helping others is very important. To be there for neighbors, that, for instance, on holidays, you would include others, you would invite others to your house. And for somebody who is a helper, more or less, it can be just difficult to ask for help oneself. And when I was sick and friends told me they would bring me food, and said, you know, you helped us, so allow us to help you. And I saw that this is a very important part also of the exchange of feelings and of, you know, elements of our communication as human beings. And I first felt perhaps a little bit anxious or weak, but I accepted that because, first of all, those were people I trusted, or I trust, and I realized it's just not fair to be the one who is kind of distant and who would not share a weakness or experiences of sadness or feelings. Yeah, so this was my experience, and I thought I grew by letting others getting closer to me and accepting the help. And it actually made for a closer relationship. And I saw something in others that I had not seen before. And this empathy I got back was kind of new to me in that sense, except from experience I had as a child. But so yeah, that was a good experience. And the other one, I don't know if you are interested in this lack of empathy. I could save this for later.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And what was I guess the obstacles in your experience to receiving empathy,
The obstacle was,
to having that experience of empathy?
oh, you mean in that example I just stated?
Yeah. So like, so what things were blocking you or have been blocking you from having that experience of receiving empathy from people or giving empathy?
Well, giving empathy, I never had a problem with that in terms of being there for others, but accepting empathy puts you in a vulnerable spot. If there are people, and that is also the problem, what I mentioned before, that you have so many different people, so many different levels, and it's a matter of trust as well. Uh, so what would block me is not to be able to evaluate another person and able to kind of make a certain prediction. So there is some cautiousness in our steps towards others until we get to know them. So this is part, I guess, also of the empathy building process. to know the other people or to know the other person. And know you are safe, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the main things I heard there were that one key component of the empathic process is being able to trust the person that you're with, so that you feel safe in the process.
Yeah, I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and, assume that there is goodness in others, but especially when we open ourselves up in a situation where we feel vulnerable, it's not always easy, for me at least.
Okay, so Erin, I'm noticing that the time is a bit roughly over 10. We probably talked about for about 13-14 minutes. So
Yeah, we can. I was thinking five, 5 back, and I'm seeing that it seems to work better to have a little bit longer. So that would have been 10, then we kind of extended it. My sense was that moving towards almost 15 minutes was seemed for the exploration for the questions seemed to be about a good time. I don't know how you felt, but yeah, about 15 minutes seems to be a good. So far, I'm seeing for amount of time. Okay, then we can end there, and then we're going to open up the next document, which I'll put the link in, which is this is the one for. Oh, is this the right one? Oh, no, let me get the right one. It's just opening it here. Just a second. Okay, so here's the, not, that should be it. That should be the one. Elka interviews Edwin, and it's on page 4 for the note takers.
Edwin, do I then, who writes, who records?
Okay, so you will be interviewing me.
Yeah.
And David and Hugo will be recording.
Okay.
And so we've made a complete circle. Yeah, okay. So I think we're all set. I was just setting up the document, and hopefully that's working for everyone.
Just back to the question.
So it's pretty much, those are sample questions. So you can ask anything that that you feels alive for you. So those are just sample questions. You don't have to stick with those.
Okay. So what was the reason for you to wanting to establish a group that enhances empathy in the world, or the level of empathy in the world?
Why create a group? I think for part of it is I like there's the larger vision of or wanting to create empathy in the world, and there's a whole question of why to create that. But I like a sense of shared purpose. You know, I don't want to be, I can be sitting here doing this on my own and it gets a little bit lonely, right? So that's, and so I wanted to have a, you know, get a team together, a group together that, that has like a shared purpose and that we're working on the kind of the same project together. There's something about a shared purpose that gives me a sense of connection. You know, I feel like connected. I've been enjoying hearing the interviews and what you've said and the kind of the insights. I like the shared, the brainstorming, that you're starting to come up with ideas together. There's like a sense of, oh, you can play off each other, which comes to the principles of human-centered design. This human-centered design, it has some basic principles, and one of them is that it's group collaboration. That when we work as a team together, that we can play off of each other's ideas. So it's a foundational principle of human-centered design, and that actually you are more creative when you work together. So yeah, so those are some of the basic reasons: the shared purpose and the feeling of the shared purpose. It just feels good to be doing things together with people versus just being here by myself, you know, writing and working and, you know, feeling a little lonely and detached. So
yeah, because as people we are evolutionary, we need each other to survive, and also with the development of our brain, I guess there is some real enjoyment of challenging each other and share this and really have the pleasure of those shared experiences. And there's one idea where it, you know, that does not, or it does not focus especially or only on the idea somebody has, but more on the reactions of the others. So this is also an aspect that is of interest to you, I suppose, right?
It's the relationship itself, that the relationship is pleasurable. And I think the other part of it was the creativity that comes from, in design, it's a group, it's a collaborative approach. And the idea is that I see it for creativity too, in that if I just have an idea, I'm there by myself. But if I'm in a group and have an idea, everyone shares the idea and can offer other ideas. And there's a sense of the creativity kind of popping and playing off of each other. There's something about this, the shared creativity that's very pleasurable.
Has there been a key experience that you had in that extent with others that was really remarkable for you, or that you would say kicked off this?
Yeah, this is a different, it's kind of related. The first thing that comes to mind is, you know, I grew up in a very conservative, you know, family, and I took off traveling around the world, and in my beginning journeys, I met someone who was a fellow seeker, and this was up in Oregon. We became friends and started traveling together, and he was a real seeker, and we would just spend like hours and hours and hours kind of exploring the nature of life and talking, and it was a lot of fun. You know, it was like the college bull sessions you hear, like the students getting together and talking, and that was like a real, I mean, that was like an early experience of having that that shared, you know, common looking at life, the nature of life, and just kind of the exploration of life and the shared camaraderie of it. So that was like one of the first peak experiences for me.
So I hear that you see this, or hearing you talk about these experiences, it seems that this is something found more in the younger years, or in the first 20, 30 years of life. And perhaps one hope of yours might be that this gets kind of prolonged and activated throughout life.
Yeah.
So
there's something about the share. What's coming up when you're saying that is the shared purpose. Like there's something about I've done groups and I've been looking for kind of that shared purpose for creating empathy in the world, and there's a degree of that intention to create empathy that we've had some groups and they've kind of fallen apart, and I'm not really sure why they've fallen apart, but it's like people are like, oh, I'm needing to make an income and this is not bringing an income right now, right? So there's a level of commitment that I'm looking for. Is, are people really committed towards this vision of a more empathic world? And I find that people say, oh yeah, I want empathy, but there's a lack of like real deep commitment that I'm finding it's a little sad too. It's like if I'm not all excited, if it's not meeting my needs or whatever, I'm not going to do it, right? It becomes very like, and that's important that your own needs are met, but there's also the societal needs and kind of a level of commitment towards that. So that's another thing that I'm kind of looking at. I don't know if that's what came up to me, is that level. It's almost like, when the not that I'm not communist, I don't believe, whatever, but I just see that those movements had people who were like really dedicated. It's like we really need a cultural transformation, and there's this deep commitment to doing that. And I think that to have that transformation, we need that deep level of commitment.
Yeah. So these
purpose.
So you referring to that question, those needs of yours are then to be connected to others, to work in a team, to share pleasure and your achievements or your work with the team, to see it progress. And that's very interesting what you mentioned. So when we look at churches, that in itself or themselves do not promise a big salary, right? But they attract people. So what, in your opinion, is that those churches, where people flock into and are just get so excited and have a kind of, I don't want to even judge it, but level of empathy. Why is it that usually people would not, for instance, respond to you or this great opportunity?
Yeah, it's like, why people flock to churches, and why don't they flock to empathy? I guess is a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know that like I said, my family comes from a Christian background, and that part of the church was a sense of community. People have a sense of community, and to some degree, and the other part was this salvation message, right? That there's something it's a higher calling, and it's giving them something about, like my mother was saying, she's in her late 80s now. She says, I'm ready to meet my maker. It's like there's something about this afterlife, and it's giving her a sense of peace in terms of the larger, after death, that you just keep saying that you're going to go see God and you're going to be living in heaven. So it gives you, maybe it addresses some larger fears of societal fear.
So your desire is to create a movement outside of those organized, structured groups, like a church, where you would motivate people out of their intrinsic desire to achieve something together, right? From the human desire to create together. And how would you?
Yeah, it's like looking at. Sorry. Yeah, it's looking at the deeper levels. Yeah, how to do that. What is the underlying motivations?
Right.
I didn't turn the time on. If everyone was tracking the time.
10 minutes.
Okay. So yeah, the deeper underlying motivation. That's a real question to me, because when we started our design challenge with our in-person group, actually the question that we had we started off with, like, how might we inspire people to cultivate their empathy? You know, it's like, what is the deeper motivation that will really speak to people? And it's a little bit, I think it's, you know, why will people have the intention to do it? And it might be if people see the benefits of empathy. And for me, the benefits of empathy, the number one is it feels damn good. You know, if
Yeah.
people can experience that, you know, deep sense, you know, we can talk about empathy, we can analyze it and all that kind of stuff. It's not going to do it. Somehow you got to have the taste, the feel of the empathy, and feel, hey, this feels damn good. It's exactly what David was talking about, is that you got a sense of disconnection, this sense of maybe loneliness, and then it's like, hey, this sense of connection, the sense of empathy feels pretty good. You know, this feels really good. I want more of that. I want to create a world that has that feeling of connection, because it feels good. Um, you know, you have a sense of well-being. If you're going into negative feelings, negative experiences, it seems like the empathy is the way to bring you back. And, you know, all of psychology is about people going into loneliness, depression, alienation, you know, all the different all the different things that come up, feeling stuck. And it's empathy that brings you back to that sense of connection in conflict, internal conflict, conflict between people. I mean, empathy seems to be the active ingredient to bring people back. And with human-centered design, it's like it's a tool set for bringing empathy into creativity. That if we
Mm-hmm.
really hear each other's needs and problems, that we can start, that becomes a gateway for the creativity to start doing problem solving. So I think it's people just don't understand the power, you know, this overwhelming power of empathy. I mean, it's just, for some reason, people have been so trained into this us and them and judgments and all that and fear,
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't really seen the power of empathy.
Have you had a pivotal experience where somebody showed you empathy that kind of helped you getting out of a difficult situation?
Um, yeah, I have a lot of little ones,
Mm.
you know, because I do these empathy circles all the time, and um, so like my partner and I, we've been having, you know, kind of some problems, and then we
Mm-hmm.
we have an empathy circle where we've actually done it online with a friend of mine from Holland, and she is just an empathic presence. So by having this empathic listening, it's helped the sense of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like ones where I've kind of held the space, you know, held the empathic space, like conflicts in the family, where I was able to mediate them, where there are huge conflicts, and, you know, is able to resolve them. So a lot of it is me doing it for, you know,
Yeah.
others. Um,
So are
so
you more a helper or somebody who would accept help too?
yeah, I don't have a problem accepting it. I like like help.
Yeah, I was just interested.
No, it's a
Okay.
great question. So I think
Yeah.
with the time, I want to keep us on track. I
Yeah,
think
one
that's
minute.
probably a
It's
1 minute.
almost
Okay.
done. Almost
Okay.
15
You're
minutes.
somebody's tracking it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So there's, as I hear from you, there's responsibility involved. Is also an aspect of this empathetic exchange, feeling responsible for the other person, right?
Yeah. Is it responsibility? I think for me, I try to think of it as responsibility for an empathic space.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much just for the others, but for this, what I would call a space where I'm willing to empathize with all parties, but I'm also standing for all parties empathizing with each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So,
So I guess we
yeah.
are
Okay, we're done there.
done.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
interesting.
Um, so, let's see. our next step is step 2. So what you'll want to do is bring up the document for the person that you interviewed. Oh, and before we do that, let's see, there's a, let me, self-empathy. There was another part that I was thinking of, might be too much, but there's a document, there's a lot of documents to hold. But if you have that self-empathy page, you can also, we can do a shared one too, like here's one. I'll put that in. So the idea was here is when between sections, we're kind of like designing the process itself too, and between sections we want to just take a minute to, okay, we just did this interview process, so step 1 was interview. You know, how did that work for you? If we just take like a minute to jot down, like what was the experience of doing this interview, being interviewed, interviewing, or watching the interviewing, or documenting this first step. And I'm going to rush to the restroom, so we'll give it 2 or 3 minutes just to jot down any thoughts. Okay, then we'll just take, that was just a few minutes there, and between the steps, we'll just be going in here and jotting down stuff. So let me see here. So we're moving on. There are so many. Okay, make sure I get the right document. Okay, then we're moving on to the second part, step 2. And one thing that's been a lot of fun is the drawing of the others. I'm not sure how this is going to work here. If you want to, oh, let me bring it up. So what we would do, this is the step 2, and so what we've done here is the next step is interpreting the needs. So write down answers to the following questions. What are at least 3 notable aspects of your partner's experience that stand out? What do they experience, think, see, hear, etc.? And we would write out the aspects. So you can go into the notes you have, like I'll be looking at my notes of David. David will be looking at the notes of Elka. Elka will be looking at my notes. And then I guess, Hugo, you can select either one of us that you would like to do this for. So you can do this as well for one of us. Or maybe even a compilation, so it could be even maybe the various degrees. So it's like, be creative, like whatever works for you. And then we would actually, we did some drawings. We took 2 minutes to draw each other. So if you would like to try that, we can just we'll start with 2 minutes, and just the person that you were interviewing, draw them. And Hugo, you can select one of us to draw. It just can be kind of fun. So, and starting, it's a 2-minute drawing of the person, and I'll time that. About 30 seconds left. Okay, so then that was my drawing, but so within the document, you can go in and start filling in. Step 2, you can start filling in those needs. we'll go through and share this later. Uh, and you can also see what are the feelings, kind of relate the feelings, and also maybe what the underlying needs are for the person. So we're going to take about 6-7 minutes. I think we'll see how it goes with the time if everybody's done. But is that working for everyone? The step 2 in your. So maybe about another minute or so. Okay, I think that's the time's up for that part. So I'm on. This is a maybe I'll start with my um, my aspects of David for you. So we want to do at this stage checking the accuracy. So I'm going to we're going to take about 5 minutes, and I'll just check with the accuracy of the what I was hearing from you. So you probably need to turn on your microphone here. So I'm starting with number one. So I was saying that your experience has been that in movements that there tends to be a lack of empathy, and that you see that most movements are us and them movements, or movements, and that it's hard to change those. And that what I'm hearing is like the feeling is kind of frustration, and maybe the needs are effectiveness.
So yes, uh, I mean the experience is frustration is tinged with despair, and also when I think about it hard, confusion.
Confusion.
Yeah. Um, like I see things that other people don't see, and so I'm confused about why I see it and they don't. And and then effectiveness to me, I'm not sure if it's like the really the need there. Like whenever I hear the word effectiveness, uh, it seems to me that there's like something that's beneath that. Like in this case, I just really want a world where people uh, connect with each other. Connection.
Okay, so it's even deeper than effectiveness. It's really wanting connection, and that you feel a sense of frustration, despair, and even confusion about you're seeing things that other people aren't seeing. It's like confusion why they can't see that, and maybe that's leading to a lack of connection.
Yeah, and I guess instead of effectiveness, I'd probably use the word harmony.
Harmony as a need.
Yeah, I mean harmony resonates with me more than
Oh, okay.
effectiveness.
Okay. So actually, oops, harmony instead of effectiveness. Okay, so that was the first step. Number two was when you were younger, when David was younger, he felt disconnected and had a need for connection, empathy, and love. And he came to see that everyone had those needs. And I had the sense that something happened. I don't that there was like an event that happened that made that, and I wasn't sure what that event was, but I was hearing like a sense of kind of disconnection and maybe pain, and you were pretty clear about your needs there of connection, empathy, love, and maybe mattering and even growth.
Yeah.
What was the event? Was there? It sounds like there was like an event where you actually had some of those needs met, and then that kind of is that or needs addressed?
Oh. Hmm. Yeah, maybe. Um, I went to uh, summer camp when I was 15, and I forgot about this, and I formed a relationship with a close relationship with a girl called Julia, and the level of the interaction, of the connection that I had with her during these few weeks was uh, of a different quality to um, what I had experienced up to that point. Actually, uh, yeah,
Okay, so it was like you'd experienced this painful disconnection, then here you could see other possibilities of having this relationship. So you could see that there was another world maybe possible. That's what I was kind of hearing.
yeah.
Okay. Um, and then I was also hearing that you wanted to bring empathy into a school, but you saw that there was a need for support from the leadership. And I was hearing some kind of maybe a feeling of frustration and again needing more support. And I was saying this again, effectiveness, but it sounds like effectiveness doesn't really resonate.
Yeah, I mean, I would need to unpack that a bit more. But you're right in that, yeah, it doesn't resonate quite. Uh, um, I guess here the thing was like the flourishing of the students.
Okay, so you were looking for more of the flourishing uh, of the students then, was what
Hmm.
you were wanting.
Yeah.
Okay, so did I kind of hit it then? Is that, do you feel like those were pretty accurate then, what we were saying we came up with?
Uh,
Anything else to add to that?
no, it seemed complete to me.
Okay, so then we'll switch and then you can check with Elka um, how your experiences and feelings and needs kind of resonated with her.
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't write down the thing on my phone. I wrote it down on a piece of paper in front of me. I didn't realize I could write it down online. Um, so what I have in front of me is the first one I've got was that in you describing your experience of um, uh, opening up to receiving empathy, and this has been hard for you. I heard that there was a need for connection and support. Um, and that your feelings alongside that were. I just noticed that Elka has actually just disappeared. I can't hear you. I don't.
Yeah, her connection has been dropping in and out, so I'm not sure what we can do. Might just have to go along and just share what you had anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So the feeling for like vulnerability, that she was scared and anxious and felt weak. And I'm guessing also relieved and grateful and happy once she actually got the empathy support that she wanted before that. Those feelings of weakness and vulnerability.
Yeah, that was the first one. It was difficulty accepting support.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. And then the other thing I'm not so clear on, but roughly seems to be wanting to contribute and find ways to create spread empathy and some curiosity and exploration of how to do that. Yeah, those are the two main things I got.
Okay. I was just thinking maybe we can bring Hugo into this. Do you have anything to add to that, Hugo? Your video, your audio is on mute, so.
Hello?
Yep,
Can you
we
hear
hear
me
you.
now? Yeah. Okay. I did mute and unmute too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just acting as an observer, sort of, and most probably what is causing a lot of difficulties is the technical aspect of it, Edwin, and I'm not really sure that was trying to work in on how can we part of it. So how can we connect to each other in a because the technical aspect, the technical disconnection, I think maybe probably is acting against the connection in a different level.
Uh-huh. So the technical
So that
problem
was a
creating
little bit of what I want to say.
Okay.
Somehow I lost part of Elke. For instance, I lost part of Elke because I got disconnected myself. I was very interested in what she was saying, and all of a sudden I got out of the business, out of the connection. Then I came back, but I couldn't follow up. And like that. So that I think is a bit of a challenge. At least it has been a challenge for me.
Yeah.
I imagine that this happening in presence, it would have been totally different. So how can we? How can we question this? How can we work out some methodology or whatever to be able to use this technology? Because I mean, to do it online, we don't have any other. Most probably, I don't know. how can we work it out? Maybe it needs a different pace. Maybe it needs some writing things or sharing screens in a different way. At a certain point, I opened up. I was going opening all the documents as you posted it, and even before. And then all of a sudden, I got disconnected because there were so many, and my connection didn't hold on to it. So that's something I learned. But the cost of it was just to miss half of what Erika was sharing in the interview, for instance.
Could we use Skype?
This is, I don't think the advantage of the Hangouts is that it automatically records to YouTube, so it has a very easy recording feature. And I don't know that Skype would be any better in terms of some of the connections. It's generally, I find that once all the bugs get kind of worked out, it's relatively stable. I think part of it is you're working on a computer that's not yours, and I think the bandwidth for Hugo is kind of low there in Argentina. So I think those are a couple of the technical problems.
I mean, let's have some empathy in those situations.
Yeah. Well, those are just challenges we have to overcome. So we do definitely, we want to learn from them and I do hear you want to have empathy for everyone in those situations, and definitely. And this is a bit of a test, so we're kind of testing out this process to see how we can refine, and maybe it'll take a whole different approach. But this is our basic prototype that we're starting with, and you can also keep writing the comments into that self-empathy page. So we have these documented, and each of the problems becomes a design challenge of how we can overcome it. So that's what I like about the design, is that whatever the problem is, we'll use empathy to empathize with those problems and look for ways of overcoming them. So
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share a little more. I don't know. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, did you want to finish, Hugo?
Just to finish what I was saying. The first thing was the technical aspect of it, but I didn't want to offer suggestions as in changing into a different system like Google for Skype or Skype for whatever. I was thinking more in using this, what we have, this Google Plus thing, the Hangouts, but maybe changing a little bit the practical approach in a way that we can connect at a different pace, or in a way that can account for the technical difficulties. For instance, if we are writing down some things like that, then they won't be missed. And the other thing is just maybe to really connect. At least for me, it has been a little bit of a challenge to be online live in the first test. I wonder if you can hear me what I'm saying. I mean, in the
Edwin, you are muted.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you've got technical issues as one part. The other is, what about changing the practical approach and changing the pace? And that you're also having a sense of a challenge to be live. And when you're saying live, do you mean live in terms of recording, or?
Yes, exactly that.
Uh-huh. So you're feeling some concern about the recording part of it.
In the sense that we are also recording a little bit of sometimes a messy situation.
But that is part of the learning process too, isn't it?
Sure. What I'm not sure about is that it has to be live and recorded.
So you're feeling that it's the messy situation. You're not sure that it has to be live and recorded.
Well, I want, yeah, maybe it has some, some usefulness for someone in the future. I don't know, but for me at least, I have the feeling that I will be more comfortable if we get together and do a lot of chat, two of us, three of us, the four of us, or whomever, in a more casual sort of way. I think the recording bit puts a little bit of pressure, at least into my psyche. It's like going on TV live. Maybe it's just me.
I guess it's for everybody, and then it becomes a habit almost, and you forget that, you know, many people theoretically could view that, your performance.
Right, okay.
And because we are also geared towards perfectionism and kind of learn to do everything, you know, perfectionally, and everything else is kind of, it's a mistake we do not want to share with others, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, so there's kind of different issues here. It's about the recording can just become a habit, and maybe people feel uncomfortable with perfectionism, that it has to be like perfect, and so this kind of taps into a larger kind of issue of maybe openness and transparency, which would be a whole big discussion of its own. But maybe we can move on. Get back on the steps that we were at. Maybe if since you're back, maybe David, you could just quickly review what you had shared. Just so that.
First of all, have we come to? I'm not sure if I understand whether we've come to an agreement about what we're going to do about the recording. That satisfies everyone.
Okay.
I heard Hugo simply express a concern, and then people make further comments, but I don't think we have like explicitly said like, okay, we're going to carry on recording anyway, or whether we're going to agree to that request. At the very least, I'd like an explicit response to that.
Okay, so there's a couple of things we could do. Is that the basic agreement was that we record, so we can hear everyone's concern about that, or we can actually sort of stop the process and have like an empathy circle about the issue of recording. Then that would become a whole dialogue in itself. I think if we really went into it, it might be like a 20-minute issue to hear everybody's feelings about that. So.
My point is simply that like one response that we could do right now could be for Edwin to say, okay, this particular call, I'm not going to publish it publicly online, or it could be that Hugo says, okay, I'm uncomfortable about this. But I'm willing to continue the call as it is with it, the thing being published online, as was the original intention. I'd like somebody to say something to the effect of,
okay.
Given that we're probably, right now, we're not going to go into the thing. Actually, I'm asking Hugo particularly. I want Hugo to tell me whether, given that Edwin didn't want to go into exploring this right now, that he is willing to continue having this conversation as it is, given that it will be put on YouTube. And if he says yes, and he's happy to forgo going into this, then we just move on. That makes sense. Rather than, because what I'm reading here is you are just like assuming that Hugo is fine with this. It might not be.
Okay, that works for me. Hugo?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dave. I just appreciate you're trying to understand what I'm saying. And actually, I wasn't understood at the point. That's my feeling. Which I don't have any objection, of course, and I'm quite aware of the agreement, and I agree that we carry on as we have agreed previously. My only comment was regarding procedures, was thinking for the future, because here the purpose is trying to implement this as something that will work. So I was just trying to remark just two concerns. One is just this little bit of pressure that may be bigger or known for different people, of the fact that everything is recorded, and being on camera for 3 hours just continues. It may be familiar, it may be easy for some, but not for others. So I was thinking about how.
Yeah. Did we lose?
Yeah, one.
In empathy in a group of totally unknown. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one could, as far as I understand, Hugo, it's in what extent is it beneficial for an audience to see, us having technical issues, right? I mean, that is something beyond our control, and that happens, but what value does it have? So in that, I would agree, but otherwise, I would say, yeah, just move on. Let's move on.
Okay. So I was hearing an agreement to move on. And the other thing is we do have that self-empathy document. The idea is that all the different issues that come up, that we document those, and then it's something we can go back to, and we'll have a record and can keep building on those.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing, continuous improvement. But it's important that we hear everything and then document it.
Sounds good.
Okay. Just so we catch up, David, would you want to just share real quick what you'd shared for your interview with Erika, just so we keep on track? And
yeah, let me get the document up. Okay, so Erika, there were two things. The first one was your experience of finding it difficult to accept support, and that you are longing for connection and support, those are your needs, and that you, before accepting them, felt vulnerable about it and anxious and weak for making those requests, but that after you did actually get the support and connection that you were longing for, you felt grateful and relieved. So my first question is that summary of that aspect of your experience accurate and complete? And can you take, and the microphone is muted.
Yeah. The weakness part was just, I guess the main thing was to feel unsure what to expect from others and the level of trust, yeah. Exactly. The feeling weak, being weak was just referring to my condition, to my medical situation. Not weak in that extent of my psychological situation, but otherwise, yeah, that describes it.
Okay. And then there was a second thing, which was wanting to contribute and find ways to spread empathy and an exploration of how to do this. And then my interpretation was that the need here was to contribute, and that your experience was one of curiosity. So again, the question I have is that an accurate and complete summary of that part of the experience?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I didn't have anything else that I wrote down. Just those two. Was there anything else that you said that was important that I haven't summarized?
Good question. Well, I would say what comes to mind is a situation of lack of empathy, but that might, go beyond the what we want to do right now. But that would be a negative example, or example to illustrate how lack of empathy could constitutes itself. And that I found a pretty powerful situation, almost a case study. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then the next would be to check, Elka, if you're checking your interview with me, the aspects of it and how they resonated with me.
Yeah, now I have to find this. How would I find this again? As I said, this is. I apologize that this is not my computer, and some of the it's frozen sometimes. Document. Erika. I can't find our interview. But in general, as far as I recollect, I would say that I really liked it was very agile, and I felt it was a very kind of personal account of why you started this endeavor. And I felt connected to you and what you are doing. I did not stick completely to the questions. As you said, one could deviate from those. But I understand that you basically, to sum this up, want to foster empathy in the world and to create an environment where it is beneficial and fun to work on to work together on projects.
Yeah, that's fun for me. Well, it's a struggle too. It's a struggle to do it. It's like the doors. It's like it's kind of pushing a boulder, and there's a lot of work involved to it. So there's a lot of struggle involved as well. So
the struggle within you, is that caused externally also, or both?
Yeah, it's a struggle that it's like the doors aren't just opening. It's like in terms of who wants to kind of join an empathy movement is there's resources out there, but it's like it's just not really huge. It's like having to convince people. It feels like a bit of convincing. Having to kind of push. It's like there's a lot of push involved in kind of getting the groups going and maintaining the groups and kind of getting the word out there. Finances, financial resources are an issue. So yeah, it's a bit of a push in that sense.
Yeah, well, that's quite remarkable, I have to say, to be part of this, and I'm curious where it will carry us to.
Well, this section here is we're kind of going through. This is like an introductory, kind of a minimal process of the human-centered design process. So, we start off with the interviewing. We're kind of honing in on what we feel that the relevant part of the interview is, and we're kind of checking. Well, how does that work for the other person? Do I see am I hearing the other person's story and feelings and their needs? And so we're just kind of checking now there. And then this next step is we just did step 3, which is check the accuracy. And the next one is to define one problem statement. And so that's step 4 and step 5 of the process. So what we want to do is take of everything you heard, what was the most biggest kind of a problem or need statement that the other person have? And then we'll take a few minutes to jot that down. And then we're going to go into the translate that. With human-centered design, what they do is they take like a problem, and then they translate that problem into a design, what they call a design challenge. And it usually starts with how might we. So the example I have there is John feels frustrated and disconnected because he does not feel heard and included in the empathy team.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a problem that someone might be having. And then that problem gets translated into a challenge of how might we support John in feeling heard and connected in the empathy team. Or it could even be more generalized in how might we support people in feeling heard and connected in the empathy team. And then that gives us a starting off point to go into the brainstorming. So if we can take maybe 2 minutes or so, write down one problem statement and then translate that into a how might we statement.
May I quickly ask you one question?
Sure.
That came to mind afterwards. So how do you feel in your, having this burden on your shoulders, kind of generating funds or organizing groups? Do you feel part of the group? Do you feel sometimes, I wouldn't say isolated, but as somebody who takes care of all those tasks, and while others are perhaps also due to some helplessness or not knowing how to do it, not especially involved always in that process?
Well, sometimes I feel like if I'm facilitating, there's a sense of responsibility, and that sense of responsibility is a bit of a constriction. It's like I have to keep focused. So I like it when other people facilitate, so I don't have that extra burden of the responsibility, which does keep keep things on track. So I like it when other people are facilitating, and but so there's that level. There's also the level as I would like to learn to facilitate, more inclusively or something like that too. So it's wanting to learn to be a better facilitator, but I don't feel like, yeah, I guess I don't feel too overwhelmed by it. I do notice how I relate to responsibility has some work I need to do on to make it kind of a more fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about taking responsibility. So I want to take responsibility for tracking time. It's in 40 minutes. I have an agreement with my family to go and do something else.
Okay.
My reach out to the patient was to do this before between 2 to 2.5 hours, and that will be the 3 hours from when we started. So, with that in mind, I want to just check in about how to progress from here. I do not believe we're going to complete what we're doing within the next 35 minutes. I can think of two options that come to mind. One is to continue what we're doing, and then at the 35-minute point, I'll just drop out the call, and you can choose to continue or not, whether you want to. The other is that we could pick one example and then run through the different steps for that one example, so that we then have a collective experience of going through all those steps for one person. I just want to check with people about how people would like to progress from here.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I'm hearing we have 35 minutes left. And when you're saying that, taking one example and working on it together, that would actually, I think that would really speed things up. So I really like that suggestion. So any other thoughts on that?
Okay.
I do want to keep the time too, that 3 hours is quite a long time. So that's what we had. So I want to keep
I second
okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
Hugo, just a thumbs up? Or?
Yeah. I'm getting a sense of agreement from everyone on this. Okay. I would like to volunteer my own experience as the one that we go through as the example, which is the document that Edwin interviews David. Is that okay with everyone, or is anyone?
That works. That was going to be my suggestion too.
Okay. Okay. So we've got a thumbs up on all that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
I was liking number one. David's experience has been movements lack empathy, and he sees movements as us and them. It's hard to change them.
Okay.
So that's the first one. So what I'll do is I'll just copy that into the problem statement. And that's the problem statement that we have here. David's experience has been in movements that lack empathy. So it's like, how might we build movement that movement that I guess embodies empathy. How does that sound as a how might we? I mean, just if we can go around how that kind of lands for everyone.
Okay, so answering that question, one thing that jumps to mind is I went to a training by the MVC trainer Mickey Cashin, and during this training, she indicated that she had the goal of large-scale empathic change, and that she was personally willing and interested in running an intensive with about 20 other people who had the same goal, and to basically just meet every day for however long it took, and she was thinking at least 1 month to create some sort of movement or a team that could then get this going. And I imagine that has many of the features that are probably needed to get this going, which is like one, group of people who are really committed, and two, that the movement would have to be built like from the ground up, which would mean that it'd be like a group of people spending a lot of time with each other and creating a lot of empathy with each other, so that there's that they are like embodying the principle of empathy in how they go about then causing that change. So one approach to answering this could be something like do something to get 20 people, do something to get the resources to pay somebody like Mickey Cashin, but somebody who's like very experienced in facilitating groups and cares about empathic change and empathy, or maybe not necessarily pay them, but people who has that ability, and then resources to enable everyone to work together, and then to just press play and then see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I was hearing is you're already jumping forward to the brainstorming step. And the idea is that to get that you've had some experience with Mickey Cashton, and about she's kind of talked about this, about getting people together, and you had some ideas about how to get people together, get 20 people together. But before we go into the brainstorming, I just wanted to be sure that we've got our challenge question together. So in human-centered design, I just wanted to kind of go through the steps. We're going to get to that the next step. So within the design, something that's come up is this: how might we question? Like it's become a very common starting point for a challenge, a term that you have the problem. We have the problem that you're seeing that groups start with us versus them. So what we're looking at is creating, because the question is really important that we're trying to address, and the clearer we get on the question, the better we can address it. So maybe we could just spend a few minutes talking about the question that we have. So the question is, how might we build a movement that embodies empathy from the ground up? So that's what I was kind of hearing, that there's a ground up. So just wondering, maybe we could go around and hear everybody's thought about the challenge question. Or if you have other ones, feel free to write it in there.
Edwin?
Yeah.
Will you be able to paste the link to that specific document again?
Oh.
Because I have to keep closing them.
Right. So we're working. I just put the link in there, and this is the one that we're working through now. So actually, I'm kind of getting the sense, and maybe that's what we should have done from the beginning. Maybe we can do that next time. We'll take one person, interview them, and then go through the whole process. I think that might be an easier way, more effective, to get familiar with the process first. So, so we're on page 10. And I turned on the numbering so the pages are numbered. And we're on to translate the problem into a how might we question. And we have the how might we question is, how might we build a movement that embodies empathy from the ground up? Would you like to go, David? Any thoughts about that? We would just go here, everybody. David, would you like to just share your thoughts on that?
Just clarifying that it's a movement with a particular goal. Like you can imagine movements that embody empathy from the ground up, but their goal is like to climate change or poverty or something.
Okay, so clarity of the goal of the group. Elka, any thoughts on that challenge?
Sorry. It's a bit abstract. As David said, it depends on the environment one works in, or what one would like to achieve, and perhaps one should even detach oneself from those kind of paradigm thinking. Because is it an overall building up of empathy, or does it happen within a specific environment? I feel that that's an important aspect on how to start.
Are you meaning the environment that we're looking at? Within design, they call it the scope. Like we have a scope that's the whole world, right? Or we can say, how do we create empathy in the team, or how do we create empathy in our house, or how? So we can start getting very narrow in terms of the scope. Right now, we have a really huge scope. So is that what you're meaning?
Yeah. In general, I mean, being less listening and being aware, becoming aware of one's surrounding and those we work with or we live with. And I was not sure if that question is a more theoretical one in terms of how to go about interacting with each other, or if it asks for a specific approach or suggestion for an approach.
Okay, so
Building more.
you're concerned that it's too theoretical and that you're looking for...
It's why it's pretty vague. It's kind of, I mean, if, for instance, if I have, for me, if I think of one example and I quickly mention this, if I may, if a person is injured, gets on a bus, and you have 20, 30 people riding that bus on a university campus, and that person is bleeding, and people just do not react, which is in itself it's a shocking situation or a reaction, that people do not react throughout that entire ride on the bus. So we can ask ourselves, why is that the case? And very often it's fear underlying those sorts of behavior. So then the question is, how do we, kind of start building, how do we actually approach that situation to instill or to get people to find the courage to show empathy?
So you're looking at a specific instance, and how within that context of that instance, how do you get people to have the courage to have empathy?
For instance, I mean, you can extrapolate this. This happens all the time. People just overstimulated, the bystander phenomenon, or just look away and are not. It doesn't concern them.
Okay. Well, in this context, we're actually designing for David, because it's our design challenge.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Something for David. So
David,
we're really focused on David, and his problem was that he experiences movements that lack empathy, that they're us and them movements. So we're creating a challenge of how do we create a movement for David that has empathy from the ground up.
I'm sorry, I see. So I lost some, I did not hear some parts because due to those technical issues, and I apologize.
Okay. Hugo, is that thoughts on the design challenge?
Sure. Yeah, I would think the first difficulty I found is that it has to define, at least from David, what empathy means for him, because it can have different meanings. If it gets too wide, it gets too vague, as Erika was pointing out, in a sense. So when you talk, David, about empathy, what exactly do you mean by empathy? It has been a lot of discussion that there are many sort of types of empathy, and I don't want to waste time with that. But there is a lot of material in Edwin pages about that. So what are you talking about particularly when you say I want to build a movement from scratch that has empathy? What do you mean exactly with that empathy? That's one thing. I don't want the answer particularly now. I'm just pointing out some things that needs to be defined, and then narrow it down to a particular project, I imagine. Not a general thing that I want to build I myself, David, want to build an empathy movement to change the whole planet. Okay, but maybe you have to start somewhere and narrow it down somehow. Just sort in the. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that you're needing you're saying, well, we're going to create an empathy movement. What does empathy mean for that? And so then getting specific and narrowing it down to like where are we going to use what aspects of empathy maybe?
just remembering I would just point in the direction of your discussion with that article, if you remember, and all the people you interview. After that, there was a famous psychologist who was saying that empathy was counterproductive, and then you interview a lot of people in that line. And what I got about all that discussion is that first, that there wasn't an agreement about empathy, but what it was empathy also was not agreed upon, in the sense that there were so many aspects to empathy. So what empathy is the one that David won?
Okay, well, maybe we could, if we have the large, broad challenge, how might we build a movement with the goal of a global empathy culture that embodies empathy from the ground up? Then, when we go into the brainstorming, you can start brainstorming the different ideas for the parts of that. One of the things you would probably start brainstorming on is, well, we need a definition of empathy, and then you can start brainstorming ideas of how to do that. So it seems that with the broad scope, we can still kind of build on that. Does that work? We could just try it and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Should we, so that just to be sure, since we're kind of running out of time, can we just take the how might we build a movement goal of empathy culture that embodies empathy from the ground up? Would that work? At least to try initially. Thumbs up, Hugo? Okay. All right. So then we're moving on to the next part, which is the brainstorming. So here we can do, at this point here, just start, what we'll do is take about 5 minutes to just start brainstorming all the ideas you have about that, and then we'll go around and share those and start, building off of those. So you can add your idea there. Hugo, for example, we need to create a definition of empathy, and then some ideas of how to do that. So let's just take about 5-10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes to brainstorm that.
I can hear you, but I can't see you anymore.
Are you seeing the document where we're at, Elka?
No, I try again. I hope next time I will have my computer repaired and things will be fine.
I just put the link in there again. We're on page 12.
Yeah, I will open a different page here. Thank you. Oh. I don't know.
Okay, so that was time's up for that. Looks like we lost Hugo. Oh, there he is again. So we wanted to just share the brainstorms that we came up with, and also to play off of those too. So you can maybe David, since you're at the top there, you could start with your ideas, and we could throw in some other ideas as well. Would you like to start?
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay, slow that one down. One idea which I shared already, which was roughly um, finding community people, getting resources, and then having a implementing a plan of gathering all the people for an extended period of time, um, and then do like an intensive exploration of a thing, um, and that is facilitated by somebody who has a lot of expertise in empathic design and empathic processes and empathy. Uh, that's one idea. Another idea, which kind of fit with that, is that is you start with the smallest number of people. So, like, people work in teams of, say, 2 people. And then you do the empathic design process, but also simultaneous to that, which is part of the empathic design process, you like create all the processes and the empathy uh, so that you get to a level where you have ways of handling various things that don't work for the 2 people in the way they're doing it. And then when they get to that level, then to add a 3rd person, and then to add a 4th person. And the reason I like that is that the number of relations between people increases exponentially the more people you have. So 2 people is 1. With 3 people, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 6 relations instead of 2. So it's 2, 6, and then you keep going up higher and higher. And so there's more like you have to take care of, and there's more places that you have to go, and so there's more debugging that you need to do, and this is harder to do if there isn't like a container where there's something like solid. So like if you have 3 people and 2 people have already like got it really good going, then it's generally just going to be debugging just the relations with that one person, and they already have lots of processes of how to do it. So the process is smoother, and as opposed to like having a lot of people and then you have lots of issues, and then the enthusiasm and the motivation and the commitment to do it goes away because it's a lot of things come up, and even the people who are really committed don't see that much progress.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that it's just the simplicity, starting more simple and then kind of building off of that simplicity, and yeah. So is that it for the ideas? Was there more to that, or?
Those are my 2 main ideas.
Okay, well, I'll quickly go through mine then. So my idea is to keep meeting and experimenting with the design process, but to do a simpler version. To do just two people doing the interview and the others just watch, or I'm actually starting to, I like that idea of just two people working together. But there's a need for the simplification, so I really see that. And then also maybe beginning with empathic listening, that so within the dialogue that we start using reflective and empathic listening from the ground up. So it's a matter of how to create a container so that there's more empathic listening within the container itself, and that would probably be easier in a smaller group. And to keep refining the process, it seemed to be a little unwieldy. I mean, it's a lot to kind of handle and maybe kind of frustrating with all the different things. The other is to have some kind of an online empathy meter, so that there's like on the side here, there's a little meter on the camera, and you can say, well, my empathy level right now is low because we're wanting to maintain empathic connection. And then it's like, oh, I'm really high. So you can kind of like keep moving, so you can kind of know, where the meter is. Like, oh, I'm really, so maybe even a little dial, a series of online dials where people can kind of share where they are. And our goal is to always keep the, since it's an empathy group, I mean an empathy movement, we always want to keep the dial above 50% or something like that. So if it goes below 50%, then we know there's some work to be done to move the dial up. And then the other thing was to do a design project, a separate design project around the topic of the definition of empathy, like what does empathy mean, so we can get more nuanced and have some kind of a resource for what we really are meaning. So those were my ideas.
May I add something?
Sure.
How I wonder how having technical issues would impact that level of empathy. So, for instance, it is quite obvious that when you are frustrated and you the connection is lost, and how does this impact our relationships within a group? What and how do the others react to that outside of our presentation of our each other?
Okay.
But I found this quite valuable what Hugo said, because it gives feedback.
So it's a relationship of technical issues and empathy. We're kind of coming to, we got 4 minutes. Maybe we should quickly hear Hugo's comments, and then we'll need to close to keep on schedule here. Sorry for not holding the time as effectively as maybe we needed to. Hugo? Or will you complete there, Elka?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Hugo?
I can't.
Okay, I just will go with what you said of generating more empathy, more contact, and more attunement between the groups somehow, in order to be more fluid once we start into the business thing. Just more or less that. Okay. And the definition bit, which I already said.
Mm-hmm. So more fluidity, empathic fluidity, and the definitions. Okay, so within the human-centered design, within the process, there's like this brainstorming phase. Then we would have checked with the brainstorms, like how that worked for the other person, and then we would actually, it moves towards creating an actual physical prototype and then testing that prototype. And so we didn't quite finish the whole process, and then we start all over again. So it's an iterative process. We've kind of gone through, we've been taking notes about what's been working, what hasn't been working, and there's been a lot of stresses of the technology, and then we would go through and just keep working until addressing each of these challenges. So I would just like to offer that we meet again next week, or even if someone wants to do a one-on-one version of this, I'd be open for doing that between now and next week, and we kind of take what we have here and kind of build on it. So, wondering how
Okay.
that is for everyone.
Are you suggesting that the two of us do like a one-on-one, continuing the process, and then we could make it something that is that people are invited to watch if they want, and then if that's the suggestion, then I would like to do that, and I am free next week to do that also.
Okay, you're free on Monday. Do you have some time for that?
Which day?
This Monday.
The 4th of August.
Yeah.
Let me just check. That works. How is 9 in the morning Pacific time?
The same time as we just had. That would work.
Yeah. Okay.
And then can we meet again next week? Does next Saturday work for everyone else? That we will do another round of this, but a simplified version. Maybe we could start with some empathic listening and then go into just interviewing. Maybe we'll interview Hugo since he wasn't able to be interviewed. So we would all work on Hugo and doing a design around him.
Okay, so you just do dialogue with David this week?
On Monday.
Okay.
And then the four of us get together at the same time next Saturday, and we would focus. I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can only meet Saturdays, right?
Well, that was going to be our regular meeting.
Yeah. But if we wanted to do this one-on-one, we could get in touch.
Yeah, that's true. If you wanted to meet with Hugo or with David or myself one-on-one in between, I won't be here. I'll be out of town for most of the week, so I only have Monday.
Okay.
So yeah, anybody can feel free to get together and kind of go through the process. It would be great if you can record it too, so we have a documentation. I had hoped that we had more. One thing I've noticed in these is we get a lot of material and we don't create a meaning out of it. Like that we actually go through the document and shape it and form it so that it has a clear meaning in terms of a real narrative to it. That's something I'd like to do as well.
Yes.
So we'll have to have and if anybody feels like during the week taking what we have and kind of creating one document and even going back, it's hard to go back and listen to 3 hours of material, but it is there in terms of going back and actually listening to it, and I'll send the link out to it, listening to it, and getting better transcripts of it. So those are all process things what we can kind of work on. So I think our time is up. I want to keep you for 1 minute over. So,
just for the sake of design, this is your
great. Perfect. We need a software. We need a version on the screen so we can kind of see that for everyone right here.
I like to see that working.
Okay. Well, we got plenty to work on. So maybe just a few words in closing from each person.
Very interesting, thought-provoking experience, and it was a pleasure talking with you as far as it was possible due to my situation here. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for taking part. I enjoyed it. There's a little frustrations keeping it going, but I'm getting really good at the design process and just realizing frustrations are just new challenges for the next, version and the next iteration. So everything is a learning experience, and even the frustrations are something that we can kind of learn from. And so, really excited that everybody's taking part.
Yes, great.
David, or
I'm looking forward to continuing this and seeing where it goes. had a lot of frustrations of many different types throughout the whole thing. But that was interesting, and I learned a number of things from introspecting as to what those frustrations were about, which was useful. So, yeah, I I endorse myself doing this process. Even,
Hugo?
I find it very encouraging, for people just enduring it, all the difficulties and all these little things. Very encouraging. We did it somehow. Maybe we have not gone through the whole. Maybe we have not gone through the whole procedure in the technical details and like that, but we did it.
Okay, great. So, okay, then I'm going to stop the broadcasting.